Every November, as we enter National Alzheimer's Disease Month, we're reminded that just here in the U.S., more than 5 million people are suffering from Alzheimer's disease.
It's a lot of responsibility to take care of them.
And it doesn't play favorites. It could hit close to home and afflict one of your loved ones, or strike one of your favorite celebrities such as Glenn Campbell, Jack Hanna, Tony Bennett, or late President Ronald Reagan. And as pervasive as Alzheimer's is, it's just as mysterious. Medical science is making progress toward treating the disease, with the FDA recently approving a new drug. But its cause and cure are yet to be discovered.
It can happen for 30 or 40 or 50 different reasons in people.
For those who suffer from Alzheimer's and their loved ones and caregivers, there's still much hope. Los Angeles County offers technology to those who might wander off or get lost in the form of an electronic tracking bracelet.
This Project Lifesaver was able to literally save his life and save his way of life too.
And fundraisers to benefit research and education are bringing in millions of dollars to help.
It's right here that we make the difference.
One of those fundraisers, today's LA Marathon. We take an in-depth look at Alzheimer's disease, starting right now. Hello, everyone. I'm Hal Eisner. We're shining a light this week on what some have called the cruelest disease, because it steals a person's mind and personality until they're no longer who they used to be. We're talking, of course, about Alzheimer's disease. Dr. Suzie Bash is a neuroradiologist with Radnet. Good to see you again. Thanks for joining us. And let's start off, Suzie, with the notion of what is Alzheimer's disease? How is that different from dementia? How is it diagnosed? Give us sort of the Cliff Notes here on Alzheimer's.
Sure. Alzheimer's disease is a progressive neurodegenerative disorder that initially manifests as memory loss, but eventually will cause the loss of ability to have meaningful conversation and even meaningful interaction with the environment. And it really results from a buildup of beta amyloid plaque and neurofibrillary tangles in the brain. And it's actually there's a lot of different causes of dementia. Alzheimer's disease is the most common cause of dementia, over 60% by autopsy series. And unfortunately, it affects 6 million Americans and 50 million people worldwide. So 1 in 3 seniors will die from Alzheimer's disease without an effective treatment. And so it really kills more people than even prostate and breast cancer. And those numbers are unfortunately rising. So since 2000, the death rate from heart disease has gone down 7%, but the death rate from Alzheimer's disease has unfortunately gone up by 145%.
Let me be kind of a dummy here for a moment, because I know you know this stuff really well. And I know that, for you, a lot of things are very simple. But for me, I need to be even more simple. So when we use the terms Alzheimer's or dementia, and we use those interchangeably, is that the right thing to do, or are they different in some way?
Well, they differ only in the sense that there are many different causes of dementia. So you can have frontotemporal dementia, dementia with Lewy bodies, vascular disease, when you have a lot of infarcts and microvascular ischemic change, that can result in dementia. So there are a lot of different kinds, and Alzheimer's disease is one form of dementia. It just happens to be the most common form of dementia. And
it's one of the most awful diseases around, because all of a sudden you're looking at somebody you've known all your life and they don't recognize who you are.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's a huge health population, issue.
And so what's been done? What progress are we making? I remember hearing years ago that they were working on something that could maybe make a difference. Are we there yet?
Well, there has been a lot of advancements. Well, first of all, there are certain things that you can't do to prevent Alzheimer's disease. There are non-modifiable risk factors like your age. It goes up in frequency every 5 years after the age of 60. It will double in frequency. Your genetics, you can't really do anything about that. And also sex, it's more common in women. But there are a lot of modifiable risk factors that we can do to help prevent, and we can talk about that. But one of the big things, as you mentioned earlier, was the FDA approval back in June 2021 of the first potential disease-modifying therapy for Alzheimer's.
What does it do? What does it do?
Yeah, so it's a monoclonal antibody, and it attaches to the beta amyloid plaque, and that triggers your immune system to help clear the beta amyloid plaque from your brain. And what we do know is that this therapy is very, very good at removing that plaque, which is a hallmark of Alzheimer's disease. So the patients in the trials had an amyloid PET beforehand. By the way, amyloid PET will pick up beta amyloid plaques in the brain up to 20 years before the patient becomes symptomatic. So they looked at the amyloid PET beforehand, and then after they administered the therapy, and it did an excellent job of clearing that plaque.
So basically, just before you go, basically, if you get rid of the plaque, you prevent the potential problem?
Well, that's a very interesting point. We don't know yet how efficacious it will be. So there were two major trials. Biogen did two major trials. And in only one of those two trials did we see a 23% improved cognition in the high dose limb. But in the other trial, we didn't see it. So part of the FDA accelerated approval program requires that an efficacy trial must take place, a phase 4 clinical trial, which was targeted to start in January 2022. And so Biogen now must show through a larger trial whether the medication, this therapy, is actually efficacious in improving cognition. So we know it does a great job of removing the plaque, but whether that will translate to improved cognition, that still awaits to be seen.
So this drug you've been talking about, what's the name of this drug?
Aduhelm.
Say it again. Aduhelm?
Yes, Aduhelm.
And so is there great hope? Is there great, but where are we? I mean, are we looking at this like this may be the thing that makes a big difference, or it's one of the things along the way to try to get to something that makes a big difference?
Yeah, so Hal, I do think there is hope. I mean, if you have a loved one, I mean, obviously you would want to have that beta amyloid plaque cleared from the brain. But again, we don't yet know how efficacious it will be because it only showed positive improvement in cognition in one of the two trials. So we're going to have to wait a little bit to see how efficacious it is. But having said that, Aduhelm, that's the first, potential disease-modifying drug that's ever been approved. So that's fantastic. But it's also not going to be the only one we see. So Eli Lilly has a monoclonal antibody that received FDA breakthrough status. Again, not approved for clinical use yet for the Eli Lilly drug. But in other words, there will be other drugs that are coming on the heels of Aduhelm. So
we only have about 30 seconds left. Is there anything we can do? Anything in that half minute? Anything we can do ourselves?
Absolutely. So if you can control your blood pressure, maintain control of diabetes, get good exercise, maintain a good body weight, avoid excessive alcohol and stop smoking, and remain cognitively active. Keep thinking and doing these kinds of activities. Try to prevent social isolation and treat depression, and also get good night's sleep every night. Those are all things that we can help do to mitigate against this awful disease.
All right, Dr. Suzie Bash, good to talk to you again. Thanks so much. And again, this whole half hour is about Alzheimer's disease. So coming up next on Fox 11 News in Depth, LA County has a program to protect its most vulnerable citizens, electronic monitoring devices. They help find those with Alzheimer's disease and other conditions that might wander off. We'll show that to you and talk about it right after the break. Don't go away. Welcome back to Fox 11 News in Depth. I'm Hal Eisner. One of the most terrifying experiences for a loved one of an Alzheimer's patient is when they go off on their own. Patients with this can sometimes forget their way home or even become completely disoriented. But LA County has a program that can help caregivers deal with those, well, honestly, very scary experiences. The project is called LA Found. And look who we found to talk about it. LA County Supervisor Janice Hahn, good to see you again. This is a problem, isn't it? This is a problem, and you've got a bit of a solution.
Thanks, Hal. It's good to be with you, of course. And you're right. 60% of those who have Alzheimer's will wander away from their family, from their home, because they get disoriented. They don't know where they are. And this became very apparent to me right after I was elected to the County Board of Supervisors in 2016. I learned of one of my constituents in Manhattan Beach, Nancy, who was on an outing with her family to our LA County Museum of Art. She was young, but still suffering from Alzheimer's. And she wandered away from her family on that outing that day. They have video that they retrieved showing her walking down Wilshire Boulevard, clearly not knowing where she was. When I met her husband and her parents, they were distraught, of course, and they were driving around the streets of LA County day in, day out. They were calling hospitals. They were calling nursing homes. They were so distraught trying to find Nancy. And I knew then that we have to do a better job on helping people whose loved one might wander away at some point. Unfortunately, Nancy was never found alive. Her remains were found, 2 years later. But her husband, Kirk, has been working with me to come up with a system that would help people like him who took care of, a wife, a husband, or a professional caregiver who took care of someone.
And that's this device you're talking about in the project called LA Found. There it is.
Yeah. So they came up with an idea. They came up with a couple of ideas, but this was one of them. And it's a trackable bracelet that when your loved one is wearing it, it has a number. It's not, it's not like GPS, like we follow people all the time, but it's trackable, like radio frequency. So when your loved one goes missing, if they're wearing this bracelet, you call 911. They'll ask you, is your loved one wearing one of these bracelets? You'll give them the number on the back, and immediately we dispatch LA County sheriffs up in their helicopters who have this tracking system. It's sort of like LoJack for people. And through a series of, pinging, they can usually locate this person within minutes.
So this is done with
not even hours.
This is done with law enforcement and also a mental health care team?
Yes. So we can return loved ones within the hour if they're wearing this bracelet. So far, about 26 people who've gone missing, who were wearing this this bracelet, have all been returned safely home. I think it's successful. I just need to get more people aware of it. And you know what it does, Hal? It gives the husband, it gives the wife, it gives the caregiver peace of mind. That's the thing they live with. They are so anxious all the time that they might turn their back or they might fall asleep and take a nap. And the next thing you know, their loved one has walked out the door.
I've not had the experience of somebody elderly, but I did have the experience of one of my kids walking off one day. And that's just about as scary. If not, you lose something and you're running around. Where's my kid or where's my dad?
Yes, it's something. One of the pieces that you're showing was a woman who took care of her husband, who was a well-known doctor and who came down with Alzheimer's. She took care of him, day and night. This was one day that she was so tired that she took a nap. And what she usually did was push furniture up against the door so he wouldn't walk out. She didn't do that day. He walked out. Luckily, he had this bracelet. She called for help, and we found him within about 15 minutes and returned him safely home.
Great story.
But otherwise, he could have had the same fate as Nancy did. He might never have been found.
That's a great story. They're also a little stylish looking there. So how can people get them?
So, we have a website. It's called lafound.lacounty.gov. And people can go to that website, request them. So far, we've raised enough money. We've had different, philanthropists who've donated money. We don't want anybody to not have one of these bracelets because of the cost. So right now, we're giving them away. And along with the bracelet comes a whole county of Los Angeles that now has more of a coordinated response to someone missing. We now will reach out to all the nursing homes. We'll reach out to the county hospitals. We even send alerts to every county employee. We got to thinking there's 110,000 county employees. Why not let them have a picture of the person missing that they might happen to see in going about their daily lives? We let Metro know.
So a coordinated effort underway, a stylish new designed contraption there to be able to help find those you love. They don't cost, and you can get them from the county. Janice Heim, Supervisor, thanks so much for joining us again. And coming up next on Fox 11 News in Depth, the father was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis before he was born. And then his mother contracted Alzheimer's disease, prompting Brian McCourt to create a foundation to battle neurological disorders. We talk with him next. The winners of the Los Angeles Marathon are done for today and likely resting their feet, but many still continue to slog down those miles. They do it for personal achievement, and many run for causes close to their hearts. In the process, they raise millions of dollars for various charities. The McCourt Foundation took over the LA Marathon several years ago and turned it into a nonprofit. The foundation hopes to raise $1 million to support Alzheimer's research, multiple sclerosis, and other neurological diseases. Brian McCourt is the president of the McCourt Foundation. He's joining us right now. Brian, thanks for joining us. Really do appreciate it. And this is personal for you, isn't it?
Oh, certainly is. And it's great to join you, Hal, on this beautiful Sunday. Yeah, well, myself and my 6 brothers, I'm the youngest of 7, lived with multiple sclerosis our entire lives. He was diagnosed back in 1950 at the young age of 25. And after he lived, we like to say he lived successfully for 42 years. After we lost him, we said it's really our time to step up and do our part. And so we started a small little road race that basically started to snowball. And it was directly for multiple sclerosis. But then 1998, which was about 7 years or so after we lost our father, my mother came down with Alzheimer's. So we started to do a larger fundraise for both MS and Alzheimer's, which now is part and parcel with the one and the same with the LA Marathon.
We've been talking this half hour about Alzheimer's and talked about the devastating effects of this disease. And as you think back to your mom, what crosses your mind?
Well, what crosses my mind is you guys covered a couple of really strategic things. Dr. Bash was fantastic outlining Alzheimer's and what it was. And then, Janice and LA Found was also terrific. And you're talking about like the symptoms of the loss of memory with the LA Found. You're talking about, the actual fundraising that's extremely important to fund the doctor's research. And the nice thing about the dollars that we raise with all the people who get behind our movement is these are the dollars that the doctors can put to use in the best way that they see fit. And it really is the rocket fuel to make this research take off. And Lord knows that we need that research.
Talk about, we're looking at video of the runners. Talk to us a little bit about, the runners, their participation in this, the benefits to your organization and the goals of what you're trying to accomplish today.
Well, yeah, we're now, the LA Marathon is now governed by impact. I mean, that's not to say that we're not going to put on, a fantastic marathon. And I'm a little biased, and I think that LA is just a fantastic city that offers so much. But now the marathon is going to have an enormous impact. And if we're talking about Alzheimer's, the individuals can come out and join either the Alzheimer's Association, who's one of our nonprofit partners, and run for them, or they could come to Team TMF, the McCourt Foundation, and they can raise funds, which allows us to do our work, partnering with some of these finest doctors at Cedars-Sinai and elsewhere as well. We put on educational updates free to the public, and then also these partnerships to allow other great causes tell their story and fundraise.
There are other events coming up as well. What are some of those?
Well, as soon as we finish this marathon, we kick right into the season next year, which is starting in January. We'll get the Rose Bowl half marathon and 5K, which is on January 16th. It's fantastic. We finish on the 50-yard line inside the iconic Rose Bowl in Pasadena. Then we go right back into to our March marathon, which is March 19th, which is the marathon. The day before, we have a 5K, and excuse me, actually the 5Ks on the 19th and the marathon's on the 20th, Sunday the 20th. So we're kicking right back into the season right after this. And it's shows like this that helps us get the word out to do a lot of good in the community.
We have less than a minute, Brian, and I guess, want to give you the last word here. What are your dreams? What are your hopes here? I mean, there's fantasy and then there's reality.
Well, reality is, when you sit back and say, okay, this marathon, we're finishing now downtown LA on Avenue of the Stars. It's the most iconic in that locations that you can see. That's fantastic. That's great. We got to do that and put on a great marathon for the runners. More importantly, though, it's about giving back. And this will be the #1 marathon in the country, if not the world, that gives back.
All right, Brian McCord, thank you very much, and continued success on these endeavors to try to make a difference, and really appreciate it. All right, Fox 11 News In Depth continues right after the break. Don't go away. And finally, if you haven't already, please check out my podcast called What the Hell, wherever you subscribe to podcasts, or just go to whatthehellpodcast.com. Well, that's it for this week's Fox 11 News In Depth. Thanks for joining us. Have a great week, everybody. And before you go, let's take a look at a video LA County shared with us to illustrate the LA Found program. See you next time.
What are we going to do? I quite honestly, and my son, both of us, we didn't think we were going to see him again. And I remember my heart just sinking. I have no idea of where he went. I have no idea of trying to figure out where he is. Then all of a sudden my mind switched and I thought, okay, he's got the device on. I know what to do. We went over it. They're very thorough about training people with the program.
LA Found is celebrating its 1-year anniversary, and I think the program is already so successful. It gives peace of mind to all the families who have a loved one who might tend to wander.
That night when he disappeared, I felt like I had slacked off and that he was going to pay the price of me slacking off. Because it's a lot of responsibility to take care of them, and we get tired, and we do our best, but you need help. And this program has, I'm so sorry. This program has saved me.